Hi friends, I am Anchita Aravind, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacology, KMCH College of Pharmacy, Coimbatore. And today I want to share some knowledge about the renal physiology and urine formation. In this section, we have to go through the physiology of urinary system and simply the mechanism of urine formation. To study the physiology of urinary system, we have to go through the structure of the kidney. We all know that the urinary system, which is composed of a paired kidneys, a paired ureters, a urinary bladder and a urethra. In the picture, we can see the left and right kidneys and the ureters and the urinary bladder and the urethra. And also the renal arteries and renal veins are present in the picture. The renal artery which brings the blood with the waste product to the kidney to be cleansed, and after the blood is cleansed, it is returned to the heart via the renal veins. And the paired kidney which forming the urines, and the ureters which transport the urines, and the urinary bladder which will store the urines, and the urethra it is carrying the urine outside the body. And the internal structure of the kidney, which may mainly consist of three parts, that is the renal cortex, renal medulla and the renal pelvis. The renal cortex and renal medulla and pelvis region are denoted in the picture, and the renal cortex is the outer region. It has more uneven texture than the medulla, and the renal capsule, proximal convoluted tubule and the distal convoluted tubule of the nephron are located here. And the renal medulla, it is the inner region and it consists of zones known as pyramids and which surround the pelvis region. And the loop of Henle and collecting duct of the nephrons are located in the medulla. And the renal pelvis region, it is the central cavity, and urine formed after blood is cleansed is deposited here. And this cavity is continuous with the ureter, so the urine goes directly to the bladder. To fully understand the function of the kidney, the function of nephron must be studied. So we have to go through the physiology of the nephron. Each nephron has been following structures, that is the Bowman's capsule, otherwise known as the renal capsules, and proximal convoluted tubules, loop of Henle, that is the ascending and descending loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct. Nephron is the functional unit found within the kidneys, and each kidney is made up of millions of microscopic nephrons, each with a rich blood supply. And here the type of nephrons. Nephrons are mainly divided into two types, that is the cortical nephron and juxtamedullary nephrons. In the picture we can see the cortical and juxtamedullary nephrons. In the cortical nephron, it originates in the outer 2/3 of the cortex and it involves in solute reabsorption. Juxtamedullary nephrons which originate in inner 1/3 of the cortex, and it is important in the ability to produce the concentrated urine, and it has a longer loop of Henle which is noted in the picture. And next we have to go through the Bowman's capsules. Bowman's capsules mainly consist of glomerulus, afferent arterioles, efferent arterioles and the Malpighian bodies. There is a hydrostatic pressure in the glomerulus due to the strong contraction of the left ventricle of heart, and the fact that the diameter of the afferent arteriole is larger than that of the efferent arterioles, which we can see in the picture, that is the afferent arteriole is bigger than the efferent arterioles. And the glomerulus is a mass of capillaries enclosed by the Bowman's capsules, and the afferent arterioles, it is a branch of renal artery that supplies the glomerulus with blood, and the efferent arterioles which will take the blood away from the glomerulus. And the Malpighian bodies, the structure consisting of the Bowman's capsules and the glomerulus together known as the Malpighian bodies. In the picture we can see the cross section of the capillaries and the outermost layer of the capillary which is surrounded by the podocytes, and from the innermost region to the outermost region the layers are denoted by the 1, 2 and 3. Here the number 1 which denote the pores between the endothelial cells of the glomerular capillaries, and the pinkish colored cells are known as the endothelial cells, and the space in between them are the pores between the endothelial cells, and the number 2 which denote an acellular basement membrane, and the third number which is denoted the filtration site between the food processes of the podocyte in the inner layer of the Bowman's capsules. In this picture, we can see the filtration membranes of the glomerulus. Filtration membranes, that is the glomerular capillaries and the podocytes, which completely encircle the capillaries, which will form a leaky barrier known as the filtration membranes. And the filtration membranes are mainly contain three layers, that is the fenestration or pore of the glomerular endothelial cells, which helps or prevent the filtration of the blood cells but allow all components of the blood plasma to pass through. And second layer, that is the blue colored layer in the picture, that is the basal lamina of the glomerulus, which prevent the filtration of the larger proteins. And the pinkish red color layer denoted in the picture, which is the third layer of the filtration membrane, that is the slit membrane between the pedicles, which will prevent the filtration of medium sized proteins. The outermost layer of the glomerulus is covered by the podocytes of the visceral layer of the glomerular capsules. And the next part of the nephron is the proximal convoluted tubule, and this is the longest part of the nephron and is located in the cortex of the kidneys. It is surrounded by many capillaries that they are very close to the walls. Approximately 18% of the glomerular filtrate is reabsorbed here via the selective reabsorption process. And the cubical epithelial cells line the tubule walls and have many microvilli on their free surfaces, which increase the surface area of the wall exposed to the filtrate. And the next part of the nephron is the loop of Henle. This is the hairpin bend structures that has a descending and an ascending limb and is found in the medulla of the kidney. And the descending limb has thin walls permeable to water and penetrates deep into the medulla, but the ascending limb has thicker, relatively impermeable walls that return to the cortex. Surrounding the loop is a network of capillaries, one part of which has the same hairpin structures, that is called the vasa rectus. The loop of Henle, which is divided into descending and ascending part of loop of Henle, which is denoted in the picture. The next part of the nephron is the distal convoluted tubule. It is the final subdivision of the renal convoluted tubule through which the glomerular filtrate flows. And the distal convoluted tubule contains the cuboidal epithelial cells. And the last part of the nephron is the collecting duct. Each collecting duct travels through the medullary pyramids, and the collecting tubule, after receiving the glomerular filtrate from many nephrons, approach the renal pelvis, where they fuse together and empty urine into the minor calyxes via papillae of the pyramids. These are all about the parts of the nephron. Next, we are going to discuss about the juxtaglomerular apparatus. It is the region in each nephrons where the afferent arterioles comes in contact with the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. That is, in the picture we can see that the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, which containing a cells known as the macula densa, and the afferent arterioles, which may contain the cells known as the juxtaglomerular cells, and these together forms the juxtaglomerular apparatus. The next part of the urinary system is the paired ureters. The ureters are the paired tubes through which the urine flows from the kidney to the urinary bladder. And the urinary bladder is a hollow muscular elastic organ and which will receive the urine from the kidney and store it within and expel it during the urination via the urethra. And the urethra, it is a tube-like structure which transport urine from the urinary bladder to the exterior of our body. And it is closed by a urethral sphincter and which keep the urine in the bladder till urination. In the above slides, we go through simply the physiology of urinary system, and from here we are going to simply study the mechanism of urine formation. And to produce the urine, nephron and collecting duct perform three basic processes, that is the glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion. First, we have to go through the glomerular filtration. The water and most solute in the blood plasma move across the wall of glomerular capillaries, where they are filtered and move into the glomerular capsules. And the tubular reabsorption, as the filtrate pass through the renal tubules, The tubule cells reabsorb about 99% of the filtered water and many useful solutes, and the tubular secretion as the filtrate pass through the renal tubules. The renal tubule and the duct cells secrete material such as waste, drug and excess ion into the fluid. In the picture we can see that the three main processes, that is the filtration process, reabsorption process and the secretion process. From the glomerulus, first the blood is filtered into the Bowman's capsules, and when it reaches the tubules, the reabsorption to the peritubular capillaries occurs, and from the peritubular capillaries the secretion process will continuous. And this is the schematic representation of the urine formation, and the amount of excreted urine is equal to amount filtered minus amount reabsorbed plus the amount secreted. And first we have go through the glomerular filtration. The filtration of plasma from the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's space is termed glomerular filtration, and the filtrate which is formed is noted as the glomerular filtrate or the ultrafiltrate. And the glomerular filtration is a bulk flow process, and the filtrate contain all plasma substances except proteins. The constituents of the glomerular filtrate filtered through the glomerulus are low molecular weight substances including small peptides and water, and most plasma proteins such as the albumin and globulins, plasma calcium and fatty acids are not filtered to the glomerulus. They are the glomerular filtrate which is collected in the Bowman's space of the Bowman's capsules. And the rate of glomerular filtration, otherwise known as the GFR. GFR is the volume of fluid filtered from the glomeruli into the Bowman's space per unit time, and it is determined by net filtration pressure or NFP, and the permeability of the corpuscular membranes and surface area availability for filtration. The glomerular filtration rate or GFR is not fixed but is subjected to physiological regulations, which causes a change in the net filtration pressure due to neural and hormonal input to the afferent and the efferent arterioles. Next, tubular reabsorption. That is, the tubular reabsorption involves the reabsorption of certain substances out of filtrate by either diffusion or mediated transport mechanism, and the substances are then returned to the capillary blood which surround the kidney tubules. Tubular reabsorption mainly occurs in the proximal tubule and the loop of Henle. And the reabsorption routes. The reabsorbed substance enter into the blood through the transcellular or paracellular route. In the picture we can see the transcellular reabsorption route and the paracellular reabsorption route. The transcellular route, which involve the substance pass through the luminal membranes and then they diffuses across the cytosol, then they pass the basolateral membrane of the tubule cells, and finally they enter the endothelium of the peritubular capillaries. We can see it in the picture. And in paracellular reabsorption process, the movement of substance between the tubule cells, that is the tight junctions between the tubule cells. And reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubules. The largest amount of solute and water reabsorption from filtered fluid occurs in the proximal convoluted tubule. And in proximal convoluted tubule, which will reabsorb about 65% of water, sodium and potassium, 100% of glucose and amino acids are reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule, and 15% of urea and chlorine is reabsorbed, 80 to 19% of bicarbonate, and variable amount of calcium, magnesium and hydrogen phosphate. These all are reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule, and most solute reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubule involves sodium, and it occurs via symporter and antiporter mechanism. That is the sodium glucose symporter and sodium hydrogen antiporter mechanisms. We already said that in the proximal convoluted tubule there are two type of transport mechanism, that is the symporter and antiporter mechanism. And in this picture we can see the symporter mechanism, that is the sodium and glucose symport mechanism. The two sodium and a molecule of glucose attached to the symporter protein and which carried them to the tubule cells, that is the two sodium and a glucose molecule is enter into the tubule cells and the glucose molecule is reabsorbed into the peritubular capillaries through the facilitated diffusion transporter, and the sodium molecule which is reabsorbed into the peritubular capillary through the sodium potassium pump. And when the sodium molecule is reabsorbed into the peritubular capillary will secrete a potassium molecule into the tubule cells. This is an energy needed transport and it uses an ATP molecule for the energy consumption. Next we have to study the antiporter mechanism, that is the sodium hydrogen antiporter. And here the sodium hydrogen antiporters may carry filtered sodium down its concentration gradient into a proximal convoluted tubule cells as the H plus is moved from the cytosol to the lumen. That is, when a sodium molecule enter into the proximal convoluted tubule cells, the H plus molecule will move from the PCT to the lumen, tubule lumen, and this may causes the sodium to be reabsorbed into the blood and the H plus to be secreted into the tubular fluid. The proximal convoluted tubule which may produces the H plus ions, it is needed for the running of the antiporters via the carbon dioxide which is diffused from the peritubular blood and the tubular fluid, and also it is produced by the metabolic reaction within the cell which is denoted in the picture, and the RBC containing the enzyme, that is the carbonic anhydrase enzyme, that is the Ca, which is denoted in the picture, and which catalyzes the reaction of carbon dioxide with water to form the carbonic acid, that is the H2CO3, and which then dissociate into H plus ion and HCO3 minus ions. And these H plus ions will move into the tubule lumen while the sodium ion enter into the proximal convoluted tubule cells. This is the sodium hydrogen antiporter mechanism. In the previous slide we studied that the sodium hydrogen antiporter mechanism, and we told that the hydrogen ion which will move from the proximal convoluted tubule into the tubule lumen and the sodium will enter into the proximal convoluted tubule, and this H plus secreted into the lumen of the PCT. It reacts with the filtered bicarbonate ion, that is the HCO3 ions, to form H2CO3, that is carbonic acid, and which dissociate into water and carbon dioxide by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, that is Ca, which is denoted in the picture, and this carbon dioxide then diffuses into the tubule cells and join with the water molecule to form the carbonic acid again, and which will dissociate into H plus ion and HCO3 minus ions, and this cycle is continuous. As the HCO3 level increases in the cytosol, it exists via the facilitated diffusion mechanism into the peritubular capillaries, and also the sodium ions will reabsorb into the peritubular capillaries through the sodium potassium pump. It is an energy needed reabsorption and uses the ATP for the energy, and for every H plus secreted into the tubular fluid, one HCO3 and one sodium are reabsorbed. In the previous slides we discussed about the reabsorption of solute in the proximal convoluted tubules, and here we are going to discuss about the passive reabsorption in the late proximal convoluted tubules, and the reabsorption of solute which may create an osmotic gradient and that promote the reabsorption of water via the osmosis, that is the osmosis which may causes the reabsorption of water into the peritubular capillaries. And as the water molecule leave the tubular fluid, the concentration of remaining filtered solutes, that is in the picture we can see that the chlorine, potassium, calcium, magnesium and urea which may increases, and so in the second half of the proximal convoluted tubule the electrochemical gradient for chlorine, potassium, calcium, magnesium and urea which may promote their passive diffusion into the peritubular capillaries, via both the paracellular and transcellular routes. Among these ions, the chlorine ions, that is the Cl- ion, is in the highest concentration, and diffusion of these negatively charged chlorine ions into the interstitial fluid via the paracellular route, which may make the interstitial fluid electrically more negative than the tubular fluids. So, the negativity which may promote the passive paracellular reabsorption of the potassium, calcium and magnesium ions, that is shown in the figure. And here the chlorine molecule, potassium, calcium, magnesium and urea are reabsorbed into the peritubular capillaries through the paracellular and transcellular routes. Next, the reabsorption in the loop of Henle, that is the next region of the nephron, that is the loop of Henle, which may be divided into ascending and descending limb of loop of Henle. And in the loop of Henle, relatively they are impermeable to water, and especially the ascending limb which is impermeable to the water. So the loop of Henle, which may reabsorb only 15% of water and 20 to 13% of sodium and potassium, 35% of urea and chlorine, 10 to 10% of bicarbonate and variable amount of calcium and magnesium. Through the sodium potassium chlorine symbiosis, the reabsorption occurs in the loop of Henle. Here we can see the reabsorption in the loop of Henle. The sodium potassium chlorine symbiosis is used for the reabsorption in the loop of Henle, and here one sodium molecule, one potassium and two chlorine molecule are reabsorbed from the lumen, and sodium actively transported to the vasa recta by the sodium potassium pump, and the chlorine moves through the leakage channels in the basolateral membrane, which can be seen in the picture, and many potassium leakage channels are present in the apical membranes, so which may causes the backward movement of the potassium, and this may cause more negative charges in the blood and the interstitial fluids. And these relative negative charges which may promote the reabsorption of the sodium, potassium, calcium and magnesium. And about only 15% of the filtered water is reabsorbed in the descending limb, and little or no water is reabsorbed in the ascending limb. So this is the mechanism in the loop of Henle reabsorption. Now we have to see the reabsorption in the early distal convoluted tubules. The early distal convoluted tubules may reabsorb about 10 to 15% of the filtered water, 5% of sodium and 5% of chlorine. And the reabsorption of the sodium and chlorine occurs by the sodium chlorine symbiosis, and the sodium potassium pump and the chlorine leakage channels then permit the reabsorption of the sodium and chlorine to the peritubular capillaries, and the parathyroid hormone stimulate the reabsorption of the calcium, and it also inhibit the phosphate reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubules and enhancing its excretions. And the reabsorption in the late distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct. These area contain mainly two type of cells, that is the principal cells and intercalated cells. The principal cells, the sodium potassium pumps may reabsorb the sodium, and the aquaporin 2 which may reabsorb the water in the principal cells, and it is stimulated by the ADH. And in intercalated cells, reabsorb the potassium and bicarbonate ion, and it may secrete the H plus ions. And next is the tubular secretion, the last mechanism in the urine formation, and it involves the transport of substances from the peritubular capillaries into the tubular lumen, and the secretion occurs via diffusion or transcellular mediated transport. The organic anions and cations are kept by the tubular epithelium from the blood surrounding the tubules and added to the tubular fluids. The hydrogen ion and potassium are the most important substance secreted in the tubules, and other non-worthy substances secreted are metabolites such as chlorine and creatine, and chemicals such as penicillins. So the plasma is cleared from the unwanted substances by the tubular secretion method. The active transport is required for the movement of substances from the blood to the cell or out of the cell and into the tubular lumen, usually coupled with the reabsorption of the sodium. And these three steps together forms the urine, and it will move to the ureters, and then to the urinary bladder and to the ureter, and excretion of urine will occur, and the urine, which is an amber colored, clear and amber colored, and due to the presence of the urobilin, and the bile pigment altered in the intestine, reabsorbed, then secreted into the kidneys. A healthy adult which may possess 1000 to 1500 ml of urine per day. The composition of urine, which may contain the water 96% and 2% of urea, uric acid, creatine, ammonia, sodium, potassium, chlorides, phosphates, sulfates, and oxalates. This is the normal composition of urine that is formed after all these mechanisms. And thank you all for listening me.